So, what went wrong? That's what Conservatives will deliberate on this week as they gather in Ottawa for their first caucus since the election. They returned to Parliament stronger in number, but their pitch to Canadians wasn't strong enough to send the Liberal government packing. Now it's time to ask why. So, what's expected in this post-mortem, and is Andrew Shearer's leadership on the agenda? Chris Warkentin is a re-elected Alberta MP and the Deputy Conservative House Leader, and he joins me now. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be here.
A big couple of days coming up. How important are the next 2 days for Andrew Shearer?
Well, I think it's important, obviously. It's important for Caucus to come together. We're welcoming over 40 new members to the Caucus, and so it's a good chance for folks to get to know each other. Obviously, there's a number of things that will happen with caucus meetings, but it's really a good opportunity for folks to get together and really plan out the course for the next number of months.
You read the stories I read, though. I mean, how important is this for Mr. Shearer's leadership? I mean, this will be your first full meeting with the Caucus to sort of take their temperature after the election.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important for Andrew Shearer. I think it's important for the entire team to come together and really chart out the course, obviously. I think you're referencing the rumors about leadership. You know, certainly that will be addressed. You know, I think that we've got a leader that has demonstrated the ability to bring our caucus to larger numbers. We've got 40 new members. We have over 20 new seats of newly Conservative seats. Obviously, we have a lot of Liberal members and NDP members moving out of the House of Commons. A lot of offices switching places, so we're trying to accommodate new Conservative members. But obviously, it is important for us to come together as a caucus, for the leader to really talk about what's coming for the next number of months as we take our place in the House of Commons over the next number of months.
But do you think his leadership is safe? I mean, where you sit, do you support him? Do you think his leadership is safe? Because a lot of it is anonymous. I will absolutely grant you that, and it's always difficult when people won't put their name to it, though some people have. We'll talk about that in a second. But do you think Andrew Shearer's leadership, as of right now, is safe? Will he survive it if it goes to a review in the spring?
I do believe that it's safe. I believe that Andrew Shearer has demonstrated the ability to lead to winning numbers. I mean, many of us are disappointed with the outcome. We wanted to have more members. We wanted to have a home run on the first go-round, but we got to second base, and now we've got to complete the effort to get home. So that's going to happen over the next number of months as we approach the next election. We're not sure when that'll happen, but obviously, I believe that Andrew Shearer is best equipped to take us to home.
Okay, so you got the second pace, but people got stranded there. And one of the things we're hearing from Conservative MPs and senators as they're coming back to Ottawa is that climate was a big issue. I want to play you a clip and get your reaction to this.
The environment was a big deal, and I did hear that people didn't think the Conservative plan was enough, so we need to do something there.
I think not to have a climate policy in this day and age is just asking for trouble.
So there you go. You were criticized during the campaign by the Liberals for not having a climate policy. Now some of your own team are saying the same thing.
Well, I think that it's important for us to review all of our policies. Obviously, we did have a climate policy. It was obviously it wasn't communicated in a way that Canadians could fully understand the comprehensive nature of that plan. I think that's one of the things that will be reviewed. I think that Andrew Shearer and our team have committed to do is review the entire campaign, find out what went right and what went wrong and what we can do to improve that. Obviously, if that plan didn't resonate with Canadians, if Canadians didn't fully understand the plan, or if there's aspects of the plan that should be changed, we need to hear that from Canadians and make sure that those changes are made.
Well, what about if it just wasn't a good plan? Because a lot of independent people looked at it and said, this is not a credible climate plan, and you need to have a credible climate plan in the 21st century if you're going to run a G7 country.
Well, I think those same experts said that of the Liberal plan. I think that what you have to have is a comprehensive plan that's actually practical and doable, and something that can demonstrate that we can meet the
Liberal plan was rated more highly than yours, though. It was seen as not going far enough by some people, but it went a lot further than yours.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people that had different impressions of the Liberal plan. There was a lot of people that criticized the Liberal plan, as there's people that criticize our plan. But I think that it's important for us to review those things and make sure that we have a comprehensive plan that Canadians embrace as a realistic plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
So you have to do a postmortem on climate policy. Well, what about on social issues? This is something Peter MacKay said was stunk like an albatross around the party's neck, that Andrew Shearer's inability to be completely clear on social issues such as abortion and same-sex marriage really hurt the party, and it's something you need to clean up.
Well, I think that there's going to be a review of all the policies. I think it's important for us to hear voices from across the country. Of course, we want to hear from volunteers. We want to hear from candidates that both won and lost. We want to hear from people across the country that contributed, that knocked doors and heard from millions of Canadians. And I think we'll hear what policies they think need to be changed, but what things need to happen in terms of communication as well.
Can you win with the pro-life candidates running? Can you form a government when you have this? The Liberals weaponize this to great effect, it seems, in the key battlegrounds, and you're unable to bat it back because Mr. Shearer did, campaign for the leadership and sought the support of anti-abortion groups. Can you win in Canada in this day and age with that as part of the belief system of the party?
I believe that you have to be willing to embrace Canadians of all different views from coast to coast. I think it's unfortunate the Liberals have weaponized this, as you've explained. I think it's important that we recognize that Canadians, millions of Canadians, have different views on the issue, and we need to be sure that we are not vilifying Canadians that do believe these things. And I think that it's important for us not to simply discard millions of Canadians and their personal views on these issues.
There's people like Peter MacKay, though, who have criticized you for this. I know you guys had a bit of a set to on Twitter when he said some things about how things went in this campaign. How does it affect things when you do have people like Peter MacKay, who's talked about as maybe a potential future leader of this party, criticizing your performance and the way this campaign was conducted so publicly?
Yeah, I think it's disappointing that Peter MacKay chose to go to the United States to speak to an elite audience there to talk about what he felt went wrong in the campaign. I'm very interested in Peter MacKay's views. I respect Peter MacKay. I believe that he's an important member of our team. I think it's important that Peter involves himself in the constructive process of reviewing the campaign in a way that will ensure that we have a winning campaign the next go round.
Do you think he wants Andrew Shearer's job? Do you think that's what this is
Well,
about?
Peter MacKay has made a commitment that that's not the case. He has promised that he's not organizing. He has promised that he supports Andrew Shearer, and I'll take his word for it. You've
got a situation now, the caucus is getting together, and when this happens after an election, there's a lot of conversation about Michael Chong, who sent out an email to MPs that, look, we have a duty to vote on the rules that he proposed to give the caucus the right to push, or the power to push for a leadership review. Are you going to vote for that? Is that going to get supported by your caucus, do you think?
Yeah, there's a number of things that Michael Chong has brought forward with the Reform Act that he proposed during previous parliaments that we were the only party that was actually compliant with all of those. I understand that there's some discrepancy or disagreement with the Liberals and the NDP as to if or not those provisions of the law were undertaken by their caucuses. Obviously, there would be a spotlight on all caucuses coming back as to if or not those provisions are undertaken. There will be the full votes on all of the provisions of the Reform Act.
Okay, so you will vote for that. That'll happen tomorrow?
We will vote for it. I will be voting against certain provisions and in support of others.
Where do you stand on the idea of giving caucus the ability to force a leadership review?
Yeah, I believe fundamentally as a grassroots party that rests with the members of our party. We're going to have a leadership review in April, and I believe that disenfranchising members of our party, hundreds of thousands of members across the country, would be wrong. I think as a grassroots, a supporter of the grassroots nature of our party, I believe that power should be vested and held by the members.
And what's your sense of where caucus is on that? Is this something they are likely to adopt, as Mr. Chong suggests, or reject based on the grassroots principles you've outlined?
Yeah, there's actually a difference of opinion that has always existed. Some that believe that it should be held completely with the grassroots. Many members who believe that caucus should have the ability. I believe that there are members that are supportive of Andrew Shearer that also believe that caucus should have those rights, and so it will not be determined by those who support Andrew and those who don't.
Okay, so looking ahead, the Prime Minister is going to meet with the various opposition leaders next week to try to figure out a path forward for this minority parliament. Are there areas of common ground, other than the pipeline? I think we can agree the pipeline is probably common ground, where the Conservatives are willing to work with the Liberals.
We'll see what the Liberals' position on the pipeline is come this new Parliament. Obviously, they have made they have members of their own caucus that oppose the pipeline. We know that they have members of the NDP and the Green Party that have said that would be a condition by which they would support or not support the government. And so we'll see where they stand on the pipeline. That's the thing I think that's most unsettling, is we're not sure where the government stands on anything right now.
Well, they bought it and say they want to build it.
Well, they did, but they have members of their own caucus saying that they oppose it. And of course, they have said that they will work with the NDP and the Greens, and the Greens and the NDP are demanding that be a condition of their support.
Okay, but what about a condition of your support? Are there areas where you think you can map out common ground?
We will do everything that we possibly can to support Canadians across this country. We have a mandate with a larger percentage of Canadians voting for our party than the Liberal Party, and I believe that we have a responsibility to do what's in the interest of Canadians. Obviously, we laid out our plan during the election campaign. We do support the pipeline. We do believe in growth and opportunity, and lowered taxes. We do believe that our focus should be on creating wealth and opportunity for every Canadian.
Parliament sits before Christmas, yes or no?
I think so. I think
so?
it would be a failure of the Prime Minister if it doesn't happen.
Okay, Chris Workner, we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay, so that's one Conservative MP's perspective. How are others feeling ahead of tomorrow's caucus? Well, the CBC's Katie Simpson has been staked out at the Ottawa airport where Conservatives have been landing throughout the day. And Katie, I'm sure they loved coming down that escalator and seeing you waiting for them with a camera and a microphone. So who'd you bump into and what did they say?
Well, you know, what's great about the Ottawa airport is that it's really small and there aren't, well, it's not really small, but it's small for a major international airport and there are very few exit options. So you kind of have to come down the escalator and surprise, we're here. No, so we caught up with a number of Conservative MPs and senators who are all coming to town for tomorrow's big caucus meeting. And what we're being told is that they're trying to get a better sense of the mood of caucus in light of those disappointing election results by the Conservative Party. Have a listen to sort of what the big question that they'll be looking at is and how they plan on moving forward.
I'm hoping to hear that the leader has begun to consider why we didn't win the election and the sort of social conservative hedging around a woman's right to choose. I think not to have a climate policy in this day and age is just asking for trouble.
Well, obviously, I'm supporting Andrew and have supported him from the beginning. So hopefully the rest of the caucus will come along. But we really need to have a good plan in order to win.
Do you think Mr. Shearer has done enough to hold on to support to remain as leader of the party?
Andrew has my support 100%.
Do you think caucus is sharing that mood?
We'll find out when we get there.
I think we would be absolutely crazy to dump a leader who we won 20 seats more. We won the popular vote. We didn't get what we wanted, but how crazy is that to start biting your ankles, your own ankles, you know, when we're in a winning position? I don't know.
So one of the other key things that these MPs and senators want to hear about is what is the strategy moving forward to win? There were disappointing results, particularly in Eastern Canada as well as Ontario and Quebec. MP Marilyn Gladu, who's from the Sarnia area, she said one issue that kept coming up at the door was the environment. She said that people believed that the Conservatives didn't have a credible environment plan. We heard the same thing from Conservative Senator Nicole Eaton, who said in this modern age to not have a climate plan, she said would get you into trouble. She also spoke about how Mr. Shearer's social values are a concern and didn't play well in Ontario and Quebec particularly.
Okay, Katie, you mentioned strategy, and as you were staking out the escalator there, you ran into Andrew Shearer's campaign manager, big player in the party strategy. Did he give you any insight as to what to expect tomorrow?
Yeah, Andrew Shearer's campaign manager is a man named Hamish Marshall, and this campaign was run in a different way than previous years. It focused a lot on data, and as we heard Conservative insiders tell us, they weren't going to do the big traditional rally, those big traditional photo ops that we saw the Liberals and the NDP do later in the campaign. Instead, they didn't want to pull people off the ground game. They wanted people to go door to door and focusing on getting that Conservative message out there. We spoke with Mr. Marshall today, who arrived at the airport this morning, but he didn't really give us any insight as to what we should expect. What are you expecting tomorrow?
What?
In terms of caucus meeting, what kind of messages Mr. Shearer going to deliver?
I'm just here to meet with some people.
Will you be taking part in caucus at all?
I'm not sure how that's any of your business.
Oh, well, I'm just curious. Does Mr. Shearer have any sort of message that he hopes to deliver to caucus to shore up support?
You'll have to ask Mr. Shearer that.
One thing that Senator Carolyn Stewart-Olson, who we spoke with, you heard one of her clips earlier, she said that there needs to be a better ground game for the Conservative Party. She doesn't think that there should be a discussion about whether this leader works or doesn't work, that it needs to be focused on talking to voters and not necessarily on sort of, she suggested a number of different issues that cite back to data. And that's one thing she would like to hear at tomorrow's meeting. There was no sense among these MPs as to what the general consensus or the general mood of caucus is, and the general sense that we were able to get from these MPs and senators is that they're looking forward to tomorrow's meeting to get that sense, to see where their colleagues are sitting at this point. If any of them are unhappy with Andrew Shearer as leader, no one outwardly said it, and as we heard from a number of those MPs and senators, they are very proud to stand by Andrew Shearer as their leader. However, they recognize that there are some significant challenges that the party needs to tackle moving forward.
Okay, Katie, thank you so much. That's our Katie Simpson at the Ottawa airport. Well, Conservatives are landing in Ottawa today, and running into Katie Simpson, apparently, is the first Tory caucus since the October 21st election. And as you heard, how they are feeling about the election really varies. So what will be happening behind closed doors, and will the post-election scrutiny and criticism of Andrew Shearer lead to an overthrow, or will Conservatives decide to stick with him? Time now for the Power Panel. In Calgary, Jason Markisoff of Maclean's. Columnist and political commentator Tiffany Gooch is in Toronto, along with Melissa Landsman of Hill and Knowlton. And here with me, political commentator and former NDP MP Françoise Boivin. Welcome to the show, all of you.
Hey.
Françoise, I want to start with you. You've been in a post-election caucus meeting where the results weren't that
good.
Good?
And we'll start with the good.
Start with the
first
good.
time you're elected and you appear
Let's
in
look
your
at the
first...
Conservative situation. They're a bit
Yes.
disappointed. There's questions about the leader. How does something like this go down?
Well, tomorrow's going to be very emotional for a lot of them because it's their last goodbyes to their colleagues. And believe you me, this is a moment I will never forget because I lived it in 2006. And it's your chance to maybe, and sometimes it's maybe I wouldn't say the most honest, but genuine comments that the leader of the party will hear at that point in time, because you've got people who got defeated, who's got a pretty good idea of why they got defeated, and might say some things that I suggest strongly that the leader listen to for every party, but especially for the Conservatives tomorrow. Of course, you have all these people, especially in the Conservative caucus, because it's true, I was hearing your interview with Chris a while back, that they still have some good news because they did grow their
grew
caucus.
votes, they grew seats.
So you have all these people who arrive and tomorrow will be super happy and just on the high of winning their election. So it's to find the right balance. I'm not sure that a lot of the answers that we're looking for will be given tomorrow, but I think it's going to be a good start on the path of what next. And I don't think they'll overthrow their leader tomorrow if that's what all the media is looking for.
I don't think so. Melissa, just to bring you in on this, as you know, you're the Conservative here. You heard some of the comments made by MPs and senators as they were arriving, in particular highly critical of the climate policy of the party. There's been some criticism on social issues. What kind of a message do you think Andrew Shearer is going to get tomorrow when they all get together?
Look, I think tomorrow, you can't underestimate the importance of tomorrow. And like you said, there is good news. There's 40 new members. So a lot of hellos, a lot of this is how this place works. But I also think that they get an update from the campaign team about maybe what didn't go so well and why they weren't successful. And I think that's an important conversation to have. But allowing any one issue to dictate or dominate the conversation is a really, really big problem that they might have until April. So having the conversation be dominated about a climate plan, or having the conversation being dominated against those who hold social conservative views, as opposed to those who don't. Up until April, I think they have to get on the same page about what they're going to do in Parliament, what they're going to demand of the opposition, and how they're actually going to hold this opposition to account. Because remember, they are the government in waiting.
But are those not the biggest issues they have to deal with based on all of the feedback that we've heard on the record and off the record from Conservatives after the October 21st results?
Absolutely, and they certainly have to address those issues. They certainly have to talk about sort of the bigger ideas and why there was no enthusiasm for Conservative ideas. I think they have to address certainly some of the communications around, why so many felt alienated by some of the social conservative policies, and why so many didn't get on board with a climate plan.
So, Tiffany, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, there's been a lot of discussion, obviously, on the future of Andrew Shearer, but was the issue the messenger in this campaign, or was it the message that the Conservatives had?
So I think to that point, we'll see a little bit at that meeting and throughout what perhaps we won't see, but we'll see the results of it in the coming weeks and months of the perspective that everybody coming into that meeting are coming from and through. And so throughout this campaign, there will be moments where the leader will have done something that they would have done differently. So as they're thinking about their own leadership possibilities in the future, those social conservative questions, the question now of whether or not he would ever attend a pride parade, for example. The question of why a 25% reduction in our foreign aid at a time like this, sort of wondering themselves, how would I do this differently as leader, and what could be done differently, and is he the best person to lead us moving forward? So I think no matter what's happening in the meeting, there will be people sort of always thinking about their own perspective throughout the election and what other possibilities there could be for another leadership. And then I think from there, there's also this entirely new space now where the Prime Minister's meeting, attempting productivity with opposition parties, attempting to find synergy for items that we can move forward on. And so I think also trying to come to some level of a consensus about what their priorities moving forward will be and who will be the leading voices of those things coming out of this.
Jason, I wonder though, with the Conservative political support so heavily weighted to Western Canada, you hear people talking about we need a better climate message to bring to voters who aren't in Western Canada. How tough is it for them to move towards the consensus, maybe national position on climate when you're so politically reliant on the West and the oil patch?
Well, people talk a lot about how much Trudeau has to balance the climate pressures largely coming from the non-oil producing provinces and the frustrations from the oil producing provinces. There's that same regional balance that Andrew Shearer has to take, and it's going to be very, very tricky. He's going to hear from his Alberta and Saskatchewan MPs who are coming back and the new ones that people are really frustrated, and he's going to have to do something to meet those needs as much as he has to meet the needs in Quebec and Ontario and Atlantic Canada with the seats he didn't win. It seems like this meeting is no longer really about him surviving. One of his big goals through this meeting is going to be, how do I quell this near daily or near hourly drip, drip, drip of people publicly and quietly calling for his head? One challenge that Andrew Shearer faces, and he's faced this for a long time through the campaign and before, is that he's not the type of person to engender just lusty whoops of excitement for him. He's not that sort of guy. So are we going to see some sort of dramatic, lusty whoop from the MPs after this meeting tomorrow, saying, I back this guy, he's our man, we love him? You didn't really hear that much of that during the campaign. If he wants to keep his job, he'll probably have to hear some of them right now.
So Melissa, how does he do that? How does he quell this? Because we've seen the anonymous angry Conservative disappointed with how things went. We have seen people like Chuck Strahl saying we need to be patient with this guy, even though Mr. Strahl wasn't that patient with Stockwell Day, if history serves me. How does he calm this down, as Jason says he kind of needs to do?
I think there's a couple things that he needs to do, and that's being open and willing to have a conversation, frankly, on all of the issues that you brought up and the ones brought up in the interviews earlier in the show. The second thing is, look, the Conservative Party has a lot of strong surrogates, and giving them a role in making sure that parts of the party, different parts of the party that maybe that didn't support Andrew Shearer, or weren't enthusiastic about his leadership, are taken care of, are being listened to. Frankly, those who used to be in cabinet, or those in the caucus who have more progressive, social views, have them out, have them speaking about it, making sure that those people have a place in this party.
Okay, Francoise, quick thoughts. What do you think the leader should do tomorrow?
I think we can't underestimate the strength of the 10 MPs from Quebec. I hear it's like two complete speech that I'm hearing right now, because when I talk to some really better connected to the Conservatives people in Quebec than me, they're pretty confident that Shearer will not be there very soon. He will be removed from his position of leader. But when I hear the rest of the caucus, I think there's more support towards Andrew Shearer than we might think there is. So it's going to be interesting to see. Jason touched the point of the regional balance, and I think it's going to be, I would wish to be part of that caucus just to see how the West and Quebec and Atlantic Canada Conservatives react to one another. It should be interesting.
Tiffany, just a quick thought on Ontario and the GTA in particular. I think that would be the biggest disappointment for Andrew Shearer in the election, the failure to break through in the 905s. Can he play there?
So look, I think the question I hear now is are there other surrogates that can lead this message moving forward? I'm not really certain that that will be him necessarily, and that will be definitely something that will come up and folks will have to consider.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.